how in the press in the last 2 years since the election in 16 that there's been talk about the book that Sinclair Lewis wrote, It Can't Happen Here. I've seen it come up over and over and over again because it's the same kind of scary underpinning and the groundswell that begins to form around a charismatic, which is what we have. And it's really startling, and it has really sort of brought me, I think, back into the consciousness today, because if you go on my website, there are some posters of political satire, of a visitor, one of our propaganda posters with the visitor guy in uniform and the dark glasses and reaching out and shake his hand, except the face is Donald Trump. And that was a Canadian artist. We found a guy named Scott, he was a Scottish-Canadian artist in Calgary, had done that, and it just appeared on the web. We had nothing to do with it. And it's happened around the world. In Avignon, France, last fall, on a wall the size of this wall, that big, there's this graffiti work, but it's not like spray paint graffiti, it's like a painting of the visitor leader with the dark glasses and the hand, and the face is the current U.S. president. And one of the things I particularly love about it is there's a French phrase that's written on the bottom, and it says, "To the heroism of the resistance fighters, past, present, and future, this work is respectfully dedicated." And it was like, I saw that, it was breathtaking. And I think that shows how it's just in the consciousness of people. And my wife, Susie, is really big on Facebook, and she sees these things coming in all the time from people who are, it sounds like they're talking about Hitler, but then you get through it and they're talking about V, and or what's going on in Washington right now, which is just so worrisome. And the silent majority in the Republican Congress, it's just terrifying. It's exactly it. Nobody speaks up until it's too late. Anyway, I went on and on.
They've been converted.
Well, no, they want their jobs, and they feel that's the only way they can keep their jobs, because if they say anything bad about our dear leader, he won't be there for them.
Money is money.
Money is money. If the V reboot
Yes, sir.
didn't work,
No.
I enjoyed it. It's always great to see more V.
I didn't see it. I saw the first pilot and I said, okay, not my cup of tea. And I said thank you, and it was unfortunately, and the good news for us was, who were trying to make the movie, is that opening night, huge rating, like The Bionic Woman. First night, huge rating, and then people said, oh, that's not the Bionic Woman I wanted to see, and they didn't come back. And the same thing happened with V. The audiences the second night were dropped off by 1/3, and it just kept falling, and so they pulled it, fired the whole team, and brought in a whole nother team. And I had lunch with one of the guys who had been in the midst of all of that, and he said it was total chaos. Nobody had a clue what they were doing. And the guy that did the Bionic Woman remake, David Icke, had done Battlestar Galactica, which I thought was really pretty good. It was better than the original, I thought. And I thought maybe he could pull it off. And and I saw the pilot, and I thought, oh my God. It's just, it has no heart, has no humor, it has no humanity, and they don't have a leading lady. And after it, I gotta say, after it did crash and burn, he really took it on the chin. He got up and said, we blew it. We didn't know what it was about. And it didn't have any heart or humanity. I mean, exactly what I'd said, and he took the blame for it. And I thought, wow, I don't know David, but he's
it's nice.
Accountability is a
exactly.
good thing.
Aces in my book. Yeah.
Okay, can you talk about the remastering process for the Blu-ray? Why the decision was made to switch the aspect ratio? Was it originally shot with that?
Oh, you weren't in you weren't in the meeting just now, right?
No.
Okay, here's the short.
Was it shot more with the widescreen?
It was shot 185. Okay. We shot it in 185 originally, and the reason for that was I had a pilot. My movie pilot of The Incredible Hulk was released overseas as a foreign theatrical. In '77, it instantly became the top-grossing motion picture in Europe for 2 months, and I'm going, okay, and a second Hulk that I did was also released over foreign, and we had shot that in 4:3 for TV. So when it came to V, I said, this is very likely to get released overseas foreign, and I want it to look like it ought to look. So let's shoot it in 185 and protect for TV so that we don't see microphones coming down, But that way, and when they were doing the original DVD, they called me and he said, hey, we've been looking at this and it looks great in letterbox. Did you shoot it that way? And I said, yeah. And when George Feldenstein was putting the Blu-ray together, that was the first call I got. He said, Kenny, I went back and it looks like you really shot it in 1.85. He said, well, what about the purists that are going to say, we want to see it the way we saw it? And I said, tell them, this is the better way to see it. Well, the other thing that was too funny about the original DVD release, because I had been leaning on Warner's for like 3 years, late 90s. So you guys got to do a DVD release. Yeah, ho hum, ho hum. In about 2001, I got a call from Warner's, and they said, we had a great idea. We had to do DVD release of V. I said, that's great. What are you going to use for a soundtrack? And they said, well, the original. I said, the original that's in mono? Because Warner's wouldn't let me mix in stereo, because they said, well, nobody's broadcasting in stereo. And I said, no, but they will be next week, you know, and just like the screens are going to get bigger. And so we had to go back and remaster, and it was great because I got to go back. I had more time, twice as much time, doing the mix for the DVD than I did for the original pilot, and it sounds so much better. And on the Blu-ray, I don't know, it's even better.
Yeah, 5.1.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, the helicopters fly by in the background. It's great stuff.
But do you think the second miniseries or the series will end up on Blu-ray?
I have no idea. It doesn't. There are a lot of fans of the final battle, but all of my friends who worked on it said, you can't look at it, Kenny. It will tear your heart out and make you crazy. And so I didn't. And then one day I was channel surfing, and I came across this scene, and I said, what is that? I said, oh my God, this is a scene. And I watched 30 seconds, and I turned it off, because I saw them make every mistake they could make in 30 seconds. And I knew that I could never see the whole thing. So I don't know, it was certainly popular. It did not get the ratings or the critical acclaim that I was fortunate enough to get the first time out. But as a matter of fact, one reviewer, Lee Margulies of the LA Times, just castigated it, took it apart. And at the end he said the reason it was so bad was because Kenny wasn't there. Yeah. And I thought, this is the best review I ever got.
So you wouldn't have made the baby a superhero star child?
Gee, no! Oh my God! When I heard
Deus Ex
that, I went,
Machina.
"Oh, gag me! This is what are you crazy?" And the whole well, you didn't hear the story either about Michael Ironside, who is a great actor, and I love him. And I had nothing to do with the casting, but Ham Taylor's character was in a wheelchair. And it defined his entire character, the fact that he was trapped in a wheelchair. And when Ironside got the part, he went to the producers and said, my name is Ironside, I can't play a guy in a wheelchair. And they said,
Right.
oh yeah, he doesn't need to be in a wheelchair. We'll take, it's like, exploded the concept.
So how will your movie then differ from the NBC reboot and what happened in Final Battle and the series? And
The remake will be a real legitimate remake of a very faithful remake to the original. I'm not going to go in and reimagine it, the deadly
Or
word.
reboot.
That's right. Yeah, no, not that. It will really be a remake, but obviously, with a lot of almost all of the same characters and the storylines and stuff. A few twisted around and a little bit different. Robert Maxwell, for example, was an anthropologist in the original. He is a computer guru in this one. And his boss is like Zuckerberg, or the head of Cisco or something. So there are a few changes there like that. But basically, it's the story and a lot of the lines even, because, if it's not broke, don't fix it. That's the thing. And I didn't want to reinvent the wheel, because the beauty of coming to places like this is you get to be face to face with the fans. And I get a gazillion emails because on the original DVD I put an address if you had comments or questions. Where would you?
That's how I emailed you.
Well, that's it. But they come in literally by the thousands, and I really answer all of them. Of course, I have created some macros for the questions that are always answered, but I always try to personalize them too. And it has given me a sense of what they want, about how they when the series came out. But there's been a couple of tries, and always they just don't connect with the audience and the way that the original did. And so what I want to do is satisfy the fans, but then exceed their expectations.
Of course.
Yeah.
And there will be some new wrinkles and twists and.
Of course, and now technology's come
Well,
out.
yes.
You do
Well, there was no internet. There was
You
no
don't have to do it in
there was no
mono
internet.
now,
There were
so
no
that's
cell
good.
phones. There was all of that stuff, that had to be. So it'll be a faithful remake, but at the same time, I think it's going to have enough new sparkle that it will just get everybody.
Can you
Okay.
can you talk about doing complicated visual effects and makeups on television in the early 1980s with the technology that was available at the time?
Well, when I had to turn Bill Bixby into Lou Ferrigno in 1977, we did use the same exact technology that they had for the Wolfman in the 1940s. You'd shoot him a little makeup, and we'd have a sandwich while they put more makeup on Bill, and we'd shoot a little more, and then you'd dissolve, and ultimately, we would make the transformation to Lou. And so there was no morphing, there was nothing like that. And when I came up with the idea of a woman swallowing a guinea pig, one of the guys in that was awesome. I didn't say this in the production meeting, but one of the guys in the crew said, "You think you can find an actress that can do that?" I'm not going to even answer that question. So the idea is, to me, if you can do it in the camera, that's the way you want to do it. That's the way Peter Jackson does it. That's the way Cameron does it. Certainly, it's the way Chris Nolan does it. Whenever you can do it in the camera, it's great. But when it's easier and faster, and it's going to look just as good to be able to do it in CGI, and you have more control, and you can make it look great, and you can move the camera. I mean, I was so hamstrung in those days. I was at the Motion Picture Academy last week, and they had a gathering of all the guys and men and women that had worked on Star Wars, the first Star Wars, and all the people that had worked on Rogue One. And it was like a 3-hour evening of how we got from there to here, and how we had it. And I realized that they had been hamstrung on Star Wars the same way I had. If you wanted to get visual effects going, you had to have the camera still for the most part. And also Lucas had the benefit of putting his spacecraft against black sky, which is a great saving grace because you don't get matte lines, you can't see them. But when you try to take a spacecraft and put it into the middle of LA, the lighting and there's so little psychological touches that are so hard to get. So the CGI is really helpful, and also now to be able to previs. I ran a previs, if you weren't there, I ran a previs clip that we've been working up at my friends at CDS Digital for the movie, and now I can really make the inside of the mothership look like gangbusters. It's gangbusters.
Speaking of guinea pigs, what role would Jane Badler play in your movie?
I don't know. That's a tricky one because I can't. I need somebody that is younger now to play V, to play in the movie, and I have the ability to use some of the human players like Mark to play in the sequels. As their age that they are now, but it's going to be tricky how to figure out the casting there because, like I said, I always want to work with my friends. Thank you, and the people that I've loved and who have done great jobs for me. So I would try to find a way to work them in one way or the other. But see, Mark and Faye, for example, if she was up for it, would be age appropriate to play the older characters, and so we'll see how it plays out.
You had talked a little bit in the panel about how the funding was originally going to come from
Desilu Studios.
And
This
that
guy,
kind of went away.
this billionaire guy bought the right to Desilu Studios. He thought, and started making some deals with people like us. He gave us a big chunk of change for a 6-month option, and we started working right away. We were into visual effects, we were doing location scouting and all that sort of stuff. But we kept waiting for, where's the tranches coming in that you said were going to be coming in? And it turned out, and Hollywood Reporter did this big expose about the fact that he was a sham. And the money that he had given us, he had borrowed from somebody else. And then CBS started suing him because he hadn't really gotten the rights to that name and Desilu, and it was a big mess. It was a heartbreaker. Because he was there, and we were going to have creative control and be able to do it exactly the way I wanted.
So then, what's the status then if that funding wasn't?
That went away?
Yeah.
Well, that's what we did. Maybe you missed that part too.
Oh.
Okay, this is important to tell you because we have, my team has never stopped working, but we just added a new producing partner in the last 5 weeks, a guy named Ted Field. And if you don't know Ted Field, I will tell you that he's made like about 40 of the big Hollywood movies, including the Riddick trilogy, the 3 Men and a Baby, and the Last Samurai, and the trilogy that goes under the title of Jumanji. And Ted came to us with a way to do it, to follow the pathway that I want to do, because I didn't want to give up creative control, because I could have sold it to a studio for mid-7 figures. 10 years ago.
Gets raped, and you don't want
That's
your baby
right.
raped.
That's right. Well, that's it. I've seen it happen. I've seen the Bionic Woman, the Incredible Hulk get screwed up, and V it also. And I said, no, I'd rather the movie never got made than got made wrong by the wrong people. And so that's why we've been holding on. And Ted, I think, is going to, and that's breaking news today. Nobody's heard that until today. But Ted is a dynamite. Yes, sir.
We're cutting you off.
Oh, phooey, but I love these people.
And you know what? You'll see him again someday, but I got to put
Okay,
you
that's for you. Oh,
Thank you so much.
I don't need it right now, but thank you.
I will take it.
I treasure
Thanks
it.
a lot.
I
Thanks a
appreciate
lot.